Karunamayam Namami Chinmayam Devam Sadgurum Brahmavidvaram Vasudeva Sutam Devam Kamsachanuramardanam Devaki Paramanandam Krishnam Vande Jagadgurum Tvameva Mata Cha Pita Tvameva Tvameva Bandhuscha Sakha Tvameva Tvameva Vidya Dravidam Tvameva Tvameva Sarvam Amadeva Deva Tvameva Sarvam Rudeva Deva. Hari Om. So we have looking at the means of moksha. This is how we can get liberated. So ko nama bandhaha katamesha agataha katam pratistasya katam vimoksha. So when the student asks the questions of what is the bondage and how did it came, how did it get established, and how do I get out of it. So how do I get out has been answered, because what is bondage is not knowing my true nature is a bondage. When I do not know who I am, I take myself what I am not as I am, and that causes a problem. And the problem comes because when I identify myself with what I am not, then the what I am not, the problems of the whatever I identify becomes my problem. A simple example is I am having a beautiful, very good, heavy lunch, and sitting in a air conditioned room and in a lazy boy chair, and I turned the TV on, and there I got beautiful movie. And in Indian movie, always heroes and heroines always get suffered in somewhere, and I am crying here where the heroine and hero are suffering in a hot forest. They are running and being chased by all the villains and so on. I am sitting here in the air-conditioned room after a scrumptious lunch, and then lying down and then crying. Why? Because my identification with the characters are so intense, I forgot who I am and identify with that, and their suffering has become my suffering. Actually, the mother suffers a lot when the baby is having a problem, because baby may have a physical problem and baby may be having a pain, but mother doesn't have any pain, but emotional attachment to the child is so intense that mother's more, because he cannot even relieve that the problem, because the problem is with the child, or child is having a problem. So emotional identification with the object that is suffering, I also suffer the consequence of it. And most of our suffering is that because I am suffering because of the body problem, or because of the mind problem, or because of the intellect problem. Somebody insulted me, I am worried. Somebody emotionally abused me, then I am worried. All those is problems at the body level, at the intellect level, or at the emotional level, mind level, or at the body level. Because I identify with that so much intensely, it's difficult for me to separate myself. When I go to deep sleep state, all these problems are disappeared. Why? The problems of the body may have different problems, but when I am in the deep sleep state, the problems do not belong to me. So Anvaya Vyatireka logic says, that means whenever I identify with the body, I have body problems, and body problems has become my problems. And my intensity of identification with the body is so intense that all the problems with which I identify becomes my problems. When the emotional problem, the fellow anger, emotions, passions, love, lost love, all those problems at the emotional level, at the mental level, problems of the mind has become my problem. Mind cannot even sleep. But if I can get a sleeping pill and sleep, I forget the problems because they do not belong to me. Another problem is, if they really belong to me, then I am really having a samsara, there is no moksha also. There is no freedom, because if the problems are intrinsic to me, then they will never leave me also. Because that is my nature, I have to suffer. And therefore, the problems do not belong to me, therefore I want a relief. That means, I want to get out of the problem, because I can easily get out of the problem, depending upon how I de-identify myself at the body level, or the mind level, or the intellect level. So, Sitam, Ushnam, Sukham, Dukkham, Manam, Abhamanam. Sitoshna, Sukha, Dukkeshu. So, in the Krishna says, so it's cold. People complain it's cold. It's hard. People complain it is hard. So the body is getting hard because body is at the physical level. The problems of the body has become my problems. Problems of the body need to be solved. But just as my car has a problem, therefore car problem, I have to take it to the proper garage or the car mechanic and get it repaired because I need the car to move around. But the problems of the car are not my problems. It is the problems of the car, and I had to use it. Since I cannot use it, I had to make sure that it is usable. In the same way, if body is having a problem, then I have to go to a doctor or do something so that body problems need to be solved at that body level. But when I superimpose those problems as my problem, then I suffer the consequence of the body's problem as my problem. So whole Gitopadesa starts with this. It says you are crying where there is no reason for you to cry. Asocyan anvasochatvam prajnavadam sabhashase gata asona gata asumcha nanu sosanche panditaha. So Krishna starts teaching, says you are crying where there is no reason for you to cry. Arjuna is crying because I am going to kill these Mahatmas, these teachers and great grandsire that is opposing on the opposite side, and I had to fight with them and I had to kill them. And even before he kills them, he is already crying. Because his emotional attachment with the object is so intense that he cannot see himself deprived of their company. Says you are crying where there is no reason, because you never kill anything. What you kill is the subtle body differentiates from the gross body. And Krishna starts teaching Natve Vaham Jato Nasam Natvam Nemi Janadipaha. There was never a time I was not there. Natve Vaham Natu Jas. Natu also, neither you are also not there. Every time you are there. There was never a time you are not there. There never a time all these kings opposing in the other side were not there. That means the Atma that we are talking about is eternal, and what is that you are killing is only separation of the subtle body from the gross body. Because this gross body is no more conducive to exhaust their vasanas, therefore they have to find another body in one way or the other. Even if you don't kill them, they have to get destroyed because their vasanas demand a different environment or different body. Hence the teaching says, Dehi nosmin yatha dehe kaumaram yavvanam jara. Just as the body is changing, and you say, I am a young boy, I am a child, I am this and different depending upon the modification of the body. You are identifying different state, but you are the same. The body is only changing. In the same way, this body has to change into another body you have to enter, because this body is no more, this apartment is no more conducive for your living. So this is just as you remove this old clothes and take a new clothes, you remove the old body. So old body and take a new body, because this old body is no more conducive to transactions in the world. Or for whatever vasanas you have, this body is not conducive. Therefore, you go to travel in a place where this is more, you take up a body that's conducive to exhaust the next set of your desires, likes and dislikes. So therefore, I am beyond this identifications is the problem. Why I identify? Because I don't know myself. When I don't know myself, I take what is not there as I am. This is what called error. So when I don't know that it is a rope, I take its project something else other than what is the rope as a snake there. So this is called adhyasa. Adhyasa means a superimposition of what is not there on top of what is there. This misidentification comes from the Rajoguna. So avidya, the cause for is the ignorance, but ignorance manifests in terms of further as through the rajas, as the transactions, taking not self as the self. So mistaking is one thing, but transacting with that mistake and trying to solve a problem where you do not have a problem becomes a problem. And that's what is the katham pratishtaha, how this bondage gets deep rooted. Because when I do not know what I am taking the body, mind, intellect as I am. There is no problem in that. The problem comes, the body, mind, intellect are limited. So therefore, limitations of the body, mind, and intellect become my limitations. and I don't like those limitations. I try to solve those limitations by making it either the infinite, or I want to be happy by gaining this, because I want to grow. How? By capturing everything else to become infinite. So I'm going to be happy, I want this, I want this, I want this. So going after objects, so that when they have it, then I am also, more I have it, more I am. So people I have $1 million house, therefore I am also great. The house may be having $1 million, but I am also great because the house is great. In India, people say, oh, I know this man, I know the minister, I know that, because whether minister knows him or not, because I am claiming I am also great because he is great and I know him. So this kind of superimposed value because of what I possess, and that becomes a problem. The more I have, the more I am. That's what is called ego. Ego is ahankara. So more I have is essentially the ahankara and the mamakara. Mamakara is, this is mine, and other things are not mine, and I want to make that also mine. And this is called essentially growing up. So I am trying to become infinite by gaining things, and we cannot gain infinite by adding finite things. So therefore, whenever I do this, we get vasanas. Whenever I perform an action with a desire prompted action, and the action not only immediate tangible result, it will leave vasanas, and the vasanas can be exhausted in this life, or in the next life it will be gone into the account. And therefore karma becomes a problem. When I perform an action, I cannot but perform an action because I think I am finite and I want to solve the problem, and therefore I am looking for happiness by gaining something. So nahi kaschit kshanamapi jatu tushtasya karma krita. Krishna says in the 3rd chapter, there is not a second kshanamapi, not a second, nobody can keep quiet unless they perform some action, because that's the nature, that's a life itself. So when I perform an action, then I am getting a vasanas. So this is another problem. I cannot but perform an action. Then when I perform an action, I get a vasanas. When I get a vasanas, that will propel me to perform more actions, then more vasanas. So I get into the vicious cycle, and therefore I have total account. It becomes, vasanas become my total karma. Karma means this is the subtler impressions due to karma is also called karma, and that is what is called my likes and dislikes, or my vasanas. There is no technical word of translation of vasanas. Vasana is essentially the innate impressions in the mind. Because in the Western psychology, you have the conscious mind, then they talk about subconscious mind, then unconscious mind. You can't do much about it. But for us, there is below the subconscious mind, there are unconscious, so-called unconscious is nothing but all the vasanas there. These are inclinations and tendencies that manifest in terms of activities in the future, and therefore that propels in the direction, and those are the total vasanas. So when I do not know what I am, going back, katam pratishtaha, that's what we are asking, addressing. How did this get bondage deep rooted? Bondage is because of not knowing who I am and taking what I am not as I am. That's not the end of it. When I do not know what I am and take what I am not as I am, then I perform actions because I want to be happy. Since I do not know that I am happy as myself, then I am going after things to make me happy. If I know that I am already happy, then why am I looking for it? Even logically we say that I know the happiness is coming from me, but still I am going after things for my happiness, which means that I am not really assimilated that knowledge that happiness is coming from my own self. However much logically it sounds logical. That's why it's not just the understanding as an understanding as a thought. That's what Dakshinamurthy says. It has to be understood as a fact. It's an understanding as a fact. And that has to be, means I know I am the source of happiness and there is no reason for me to go anywhere. And that's how Krishna defines as Sthita Prajnaha. So how does this get established? Because of when I perform an action, it leaves the vasanas, and the vasanas that cannot be exhausted be put into my account. That's called the total account, called sanchita karma, of which only I bring into this life, and this life becomes a cause, a cause for this particular life of body, mind, intellect. I am taking it, assuming this can be exhausted in this life, and therefore this cycle of when I perform an action in this life with a willful action, accumulate more vasanas, and again the total account will be growing only, and this will be continuously life after life after life. I don't know, I might have started somewhere from the anatomically a single cell, all the way I come up to now, fortunately, to a level where now I can start thinking. That's why the Manushyatvam, Mushutvam, Mahapurusha Samsrayam, Durlabam, Traimevaitatu, Daivanugrahetukam. So it's been said that the birth as a human being itself is a rare indeed, and that kind of life cannot come unless the mind is mature enough to think clearly, and those who are born are blessed indeed as a human being, and if they do not use the mind properly to evaluate, and what am I going to do, since this life is given for me to go beyond. Beyond means to get liberated. I need this kind of Manushya Janma, and to make use of it, I have to go. So what should I do? Tad vijnanartam sa gurum eva abhigachet. So for that knowledge only, scripture advising you to go to the knowledge. So we have analyzed exhaustively now in terms of what is bondage in a way, and how does the bondage gets established, and how to remove in general sense, and what is required. So bondage comes in a sense that when I identify myself with anatma as atma. So whatever I am not as I am, when I do identification, that's bondage. Why do I identify? Because I do not know myself. So solution to the problem is knowing myself. Even after knowing myself, the knowledge is there, but these vasanas are still there. The total sanchita, the sanchita karma, that means total account balance, the total account that I brought in, the total account may be gone, but prarabdha karma continue, because this particular body, mind, intellect is a product of that prarabdha karma. So until this prarabdha karma continues, the destiny continues, I had to live, or the body, mind, and intellect will live through. Therefore, this is, even though I have gained the knowledge, this will continue. Therefore, he is called Jivan Muktaha. Liberated, well, still, because he has already gained the knowledge, but he is going through the prarabdha, but he knows that karma doesn't belong to him. Karma belongs to the body, mind, intellect. Because he understood Prakrutshaiva cha karmani kriyamanani sarvasaha yah pasyati tadatmanam akartaram sapasyati. The Prakriti itself is performing the action, and one who knows that he is non-doer. So still activities can go on at the level of body, mind, and intellect, and the realized person knows now that I am not a doer in spite of all the doing going on. So doing is going on at the level appropriately depending upon the environment. So local environment responds to the stimulus, and that's called in the science called Le Chatelier's principle. So when a system is perturbed, the system will react in a way to oppose the constraints of that are imposed, and that's what the law. They call it a law called Le Chatelier's principle, and it is essentially when I am pushed to perform an action, I perform an action, and the action will have a result, and the system, the total universe respond back, and responding back depending upon my action plus other people's action also. All that is implied in that of action reaction, but it's all of Prakriti only. Prakriti eva cha karmani kriyamanani sarvasaha. All the activities are done by the Prakriti only, and that who knows that I am not a doer in spite of doing is the wisdom. So we have analyzed what is the bondage and how the bondage comes, how does it get established, and also in terms of liberation is Brahmatmaikatva bodhena moksha siddhyati nanyata. Understanding that Atma and Brahman are one and the same, or identity has to be understood. Now from now on, we have deviated from the main talks of the Viveka Chudamani, where says when I talk about avidya, the ignorance, we started with other people's criticisms and counter criticisms and how we can get out of their clear understanding of why Advaita insists that avidya is the cause of a problem. Avidya at the individual level, avidya at the total level has to be understood. So when the jiva realize that I am Brahman, it is the local mind that is realizing. That doesn't mean that other minds are realizing. But from the point of the one, the local mind, and he realizes that everything else is other than, is nothing but Ishvara. It becomes a vibhuti. So from his understanding, he says, I have realized, at the same time I have realized I am the totality itself. It becomes my vibhuti. So from the Jnani's point, he looks at the world as Vaibhavam. Because now the totality is identified, therefore the scripture says, Brahmavit, Brahmaiva bhavati. Knower of Brahman becomes Brahman. How does he become Brahman? Because he has been Brahman before also. All the time he was a Brahman. That means he understood that he is Brahman. So Brahman is not something that I can become. So knower of chemistry doesn't become chemistry. Knower of chair doesn't become a chair. But knower of Brahman becomes Brahman only because I am infiniteness is the knowledge. And because I have been infinite and I have been now infinite and ever infinite, I am Nitya Mukta Swarupoham Ahamevaham Avyayaha. I am eternally liberated even when I did not know that I am liberated. Even when I did not know that I am not Brahman, I was a Brahman also there. I didn't become Brahman. Now I know that I have been Brahman only. So karma never belongs to me now. Na papam, na punyam. So in this, the Shankaracharya says Shivoham, Shivoham. So I am the pure consciousness, pure auspiciousness. That is Shivam. And that is that Chaturtham Manyante Sa Atma Sa Vijnaya. Shivam Shantam Shivam Advaitam Chaturtham Manyante Sa Atma Vijnaya. That has to be known. That is the nature of Atma, and that is understood once I have the clear understanding of Advaita Vedanta through Shravana, Manana, Nididhyasana. For this only we have to go to a teacher. And from the next talk on, we go back to the Viveka Chudamani class and go into more detailed details in terms of the Anatma aspect of it, because I need to understand Anatma, so differentiate myself, slowly develop that Viveka, that discriminative intellect of seeing Atma in Anatma also. With that, we'll stop here. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Sishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Harihi Om Sri Gurubhyo Namaha. Harihi Om.